All right, it's just about 31 minutes past the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you everybody for joining me. My name is Jenny Richards and I'm on the Tableau Public team. Today we're going to talk about how to create a visualization and publish it to the web. Just a few logistical items to take care of. If you have any questions, please send them either in the Q&A window or the chat window, and I will do my best to answer them as we go. Just to cover a few things, we are going to be talking about creating a few charts, how to create a dashboard, and then publishing to Tableau Public. Contrary to the registration screen, I think I just realized today that said that we are going to be working off of Tableau 9.0, which is a little bit old. So we're going to actually be using Tableau 10. And if you have any questions about that as we go, just let me know. So first thing I would like to do is show you an example of what we're going to build today. So this is a map of bicycle accidents in the city of Seattle from 2010 to 2015. And it's a little kind of a lot to look at all at once, but we'll go through one at a time to show you sort of how this is made. Notice that if you hover over any of the dots on the map, it will actually show you where the accident was, what the circumstances were of the accident, the light conditions are. And then I've also got a line chart here that the color still matches. So a car hit the bike is actually in red, bike hit a car is in dark blue, bike hit a bike is in purple, solo bike is in teal, and then a bike hit pedestrian, which is way down here because it doesn't happen very often, thankfully, is in gray. So that's another chart we're going to make. And then the third one, if we have a little bit of time, we're going to make just a simple bar chart. So we're going to combine all of these things together and we're going to create a dashboard that's fully interactive that you can publish to Tableau Public. So we may not get to all of these pieces, but we'll get to as many as we can. And please take a moment. I'm going to put my contact information back up. If you have a question that I'm not able to cover during this training, you're welcome to send me an email. My email address is on the screen right now. Send me an email and I'm happy to answer your questions after this training too. All right, so first question, or first item I want to cover is where did I get this information? Because this is a lot of really cool information, but how did somebody like me find this? So I actually pull this data off of data.seattle.gov. A lot of your local jurisdictions will have an open data website. You just have to ask if it exists. A lot of them actually use the same, I can't remember the name of the server, but the same type of server to serve up this information. So I'm going to actually go in here to transportation and I'm going to search for bicycle accidents. So you can see how I'm pulling this. Actually, maybe it is not in transportation, but it is in public safety. I always get this wrong the first time. So let me open that up, try public safety instead, and bicycle collisions. It's the right word. That's interesting. That was showing just a few hours ago. All right, so let's see what we got. Show all transportation. Okay, apologies. This is taking me a little bit longer than I had expected, but there is your bicycle collision data. So let me open this up and I'm going to show you what it looks like when you might look at it on your local jurisdiction, local city's website. You notice that it basically shows this information in a crosstab, also known as a spreadsheet. Might be a CSV file. The only thing that's a little tricky is looking at these titles up at the top. They're not necessarily the easiest to understand, but I've looked at this data a few times, and so I can tell you what most of these are. One of the things that you're going to do here is actually export the data, and it will come down into a CSV format. So this is how I get the data. There's a couple of pieces I want to tell you about as I'm looking through this data. Remember, this is bicycle collision data, and so it is what I really want to know is there a unique key that differentiates one row from the next? And actually, I think it's right here in this INC key field, so incident key. If I scroll to the right, there's another couple of fields that are interesting. There's also a report number, okay? So that might be used a little bit later. And then something that I really think is important to put these on a map is this column right here called shape. And you'll notice that if I hover over the column, this is actually latitude and longitude. But when you pull this down into Excel, for example, it puts everything into a single column. And when you're using it in Tableau, it's important that you separate these into two separate columns, one for latitude and one for longitude. So those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to look at when you're pulling data, especially off of a public data source, is that your latitude and longitude are in separate columns, that everything that you're looking at kind of makes sense. Like this says road conditions, SDOT COL code. That stands for Seattle Department of Transportation collision code, some internal number that they use. The next column over is SDOT call desk. So it's again Seattle Department of Transportation collision description. So you can tell that if I highlight over these, it tells me what sort of generally the collision was about. A bike or a car struck a bicyclist, in this case referred to as a pedal cyclist. Also, pedal cyclist struck a motor vehicle at the front end angle. So this kind of data is available in a lot of your local municipalities. You should just go out and take a look and see what's there. So I have downloaded that data, and I have that in a spreadsheet, and I want to show you what it looks like in my spreadsheet. Pretty much the same format. I didn't bother to even change any of the titles. Remember that I said there's this incident key column right here, and we might be using that a little bit later. There is also an incident date and a date time. And notice these are pretty close, but all of the incident dates in this column look a little bit different from the date time. So, when we go into Tableau, I'll look at both of these two so that you can see what Tableau thinks of these two columns. And then if I scroll over a little bit more, notice that I did change the name of the title of that column. It used to be SDOT column or collision description. I call it collision description because it's a heck of a lot easier to read. And then again, I've separated the latitude and the longitude. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet that we're going to be working with. There are about, let's see, and down 4,000 rows to this column, or to this spreadsheet, and that's covering 2010 to 2015. So I'm going to stop for a minute and ask if anybody has any questions before we continue. Anything about cleaning data or where to find this data? Any questions? Nope. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open up Tableau. So this is, I've actually been working quite a bit in Tableau the last couple of days. So you'll see a lot of my old workbooks up here. Also, on the right column, there is some additional information on getting started, some training information. These are all videos that the Tableau Public team creates. We also have viz of the week. I'm actually using Tableau Desktop, so it shows viz of the week. If I were using Tableau Public, this would show you the viz of the day. And then some additional resources down here at the bottom. On the left side of the screen, this is information on how to connect to different types of files. So I do have one question that asks, how do I get the information? Are you asking how you get the information into Tableau or how you get the information off of a website? I'll let you ask. Can I share the link to download the data? Sure, I can share the link to the City of Seattle website. So if you are following along, I'm going to put this in the chat window. You do not have to follow along, or you can watch if you'd like. If you want to actually download the data, I sent you a link to this page right here. You're going to click Export, and you're going to pick a CSV for Excel. All right. So there's quite a bit of cleaning that you might want to do in the meantime. I'm going to go ahead and keep going because I want to take some time to show you how to build this in Tableau. I can also help you after this session if you want to talk a little bit more about cleaning the data. All right, so I'm in Tableau right now. I'm going to go ahead and choose to connect to a file, and I'm going to connect to Excel. Actually, I'm going to close that version of Excel and not save it. So let me go out here and let me find that file. And there's my bicycle collision data. And when I open it up, you'll see that down at the bottom of the screen is basically the same information that I had in the spreadsheet. So there is the incident key that we talked about. Here is incident date and date time. And if I scroll over here, you'll notice that collision description. I told you that I renamed the title of that column so it was a little easier to read. And here is latitude and longitude. Now there's something I'd like to point out. I will talk a little bit about cleaning data in a bit. Something I want to talk about right here, and that is in the upper left-hand corner of each column. You'll have a color indicator and a data type indicator. So right here in this latitude column, you notice there's a little green globe. This is Tableau telling me, hey, I think this is what's the word I'm looking for? This is geography data, as opposed to this column in the width column is a number. And in the weather column, notice that it has a little ABC right here. This tells me that it is a string. So this latitude and longitude, yes, are coordinates, and Tableau has it built in that it recognizes anything with this title of latitude and longitude and the coordinates beneath as being geographic information. If I scroll a little bit further to the left, notice that collision description is a string, and report number, in this case, it identifies this as a string just because we're not going to be doing any math with this number. So no addition, subtraction. This is not a continuous number. This is essentially a label. One other piece I want to point out is that date time item. Remember I pointed out in the data there were two different columns with date time. One that was incident date, and I said these all kind of looked about the same, and one that actually was titled date time. And you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, it recognizes, Tableau actually recognizes that this is a date time field, as opposed to this column, which Tableau can't quite figure out what it is, and that's because the format of the items or the data in this field doesn't comply with a sort of a standard date time format that Tableau is recognizing. So in this, we're actually going to use this date time column because Tableau already recognizes it as date and time. All right, I'm going to pause just a second. I see a couple of questions and I want to address them. First question I'll answer pretty quickly is, how is Tableau Public different from Tableau Desktop? Functionally, they are the same. The primary difference is Tableau Desktop lets you open data sources from databases, as opposed to Tableau Public, which is strictly Excel spreadsheets, CSV files, and Google Sheets. One other difference is Tableau Public, you are saving all of your visualizations to the cloud, as opposed to Tableau Desktop, which you can save them locally. But the big difference is Tableau Public is free and anybody can use it. You want to make sure that you're using publicly available data because you are publishing to the web. Okay, so that's one thing. Another question somebody asked is, what's the maximum number of rows that you can import into Tableau? For Tableau Public, it's actually based on the maximum number of rows you can have in your spreadsheet. So it's a pretty big number. If you're in Tableau Desktop, it is considerably larger. You can connect to Hadoop data sources, really pretty large databases. So I would say that it's probably going to be limited based on the amount of processor capabilities you have. So let's see, what else do we have? Other questions that we have in here. Yes, latitude and longitude are coordinates. Can I talk about cleaning the data? When you're in, let's see, can you send me a couple of specific questions about cleaning the data? Really what I can talk about is pretty brief. Things like you want to make sure that numbers look like numbers, that your columns make sense to you so that you understand the data that you're going to be visualizing within Tableau, that your latitude and longitude are in two separate columns, for example. So that might mean that you are copying a single column into another column and sort of cleaning through that data using, find and replace in Excel. So you'd be spending a bit of time in Excel working through sort of normalizing your data, making sure that it is all consistently formatted and that it actually makes that when you bring it into Tableau, which you'll be paying attention to, is that item in the upper left-hand corner, making sure that Tableau understands what you think the data is. Because I understand this column to be DateTime, Tableau says, well, I don't know what this column is. I might choose to not use that column, right? One last question is, can we perform ETL transformations as we get the data into Tableau? That's a little bit of an advanced question. How about I have you ask me that question separately over email? We're going to strictly do some simple visualizations within Tableau. And one other question that we're getting is, I'm using data from a single spreadsheet. Can you combine the data from more than one spreadsheet? Yes, you can actually create a join directly into Tableau. If I had a second page on the spreadsheet, for example, or a second data source, I would be able to see all of the different sheets right here in the left-hand column, and I would drag them to this open area, and it would allow me to define what kind of join, whether it's an inner join or a left join, and you would see the results actually change the data source down at the bottom. The last question, how do you get support for Tableau Public? You can send a message directly to me, and I can help you with Tableau Public questions. Can you insert coordinates from a non-US area, for example, a place in Africa? Yes, latitude and longitude are global. Tableau will be able to interpret those. One piece it cannot interpret, and this is a really important item, is location, like you see in this column right here. Currently, Tableau can get down to the zip code level in the US. It can get down to district levels internationally. So if there are departments or regions or zones in your country, it can recognize those automatically. It does really well with latitude and longitude. So yes, all of those are options. And if you have a specific example that you want to cover, again, send me an email and let me see what you're working on. And I'm happy to help you. Happy to help you kind of sort through the question that you're having. And I will definitely repost my name and email address at the very end. No problem at all. Lots of good questions. Okay, so let me go ahead and create a new chart within Tableau. I'm just going to click on sheet 1, and I'm going to show you what we have here on the left side of the screen. These are all of the columns that we were looking at on this data source tab. So here's your data source, here are all of the columns, and when I bring them into sheet 1, notice that they're now here on the left. When you open up a spreadsheet or a CSV, all of your columns are going to appear here. They may appear in groups depending on whether or not you're adding them in different data sources, if you join different sheets, for example. And notice that there's 2 sections, one for dimensions and one for measures. And your dimensions are basically labels or descriptive information. Notice that we had, remember I said collision description? That's actually a dimension because it talks about bicycle hitting a car or a car hitting a bicycle, as opposed to measures, which are columns or data that you can technically count. For example, distance or a number of fatalities or the number of injuries. So these are labels versus numbers, essentially what you're looking at here. In this particular example, there are a few items in the measures that I didn't bother to change into dimensions. For example, there is an incident key. I know that that's a label. If I go to the data source and I look at incident key, I'm not going to be doing any math with this number, but this number happens to be a key that the city of Seattle uses to differentiate the different kinds of, or intersection key, the different kinds of intersections. But that doesn't mean you have to clean everything all the time, because I'm not going to use those columns in this particular visualization. All right, so let's see. First thing we're going to do is we're going to build a map. And so this technique is the same no matter whether you're building a local map or an international map. I'm going to do this really simple. I'm going to take the latitude and the longitude, and I'm just going to double click on each. Okay. And right now you'll see that it created a map automatically. It put columns and rows, longitude and latitude, and it put a single dot here. And that's because if you look up at the top, it's trying to average all of the values in the latitude and longitude column. So to differentiate that, I'm going to take this incident key. Remember, we talked about incident key as being a differentiator between all of the rows of data. I'm going to drag it into the detail column. And then I'm going to change this type to discrete. Is that right? To discrete? Maybe not to discrete. I'm going to change it to dimension. Okay, so right here, what I just did is I essentially took that incident key and I effectively moved it to this section by calling it a dimension. When I use the drop down right here, I made it a dimension. And you'll see that automatically it created a map. And right now, this is actually, this is Seattle. These are all waterways around Seattle. So you can see they're kind of white. And all of the dots appear. If I hover over the dots, I'd be able to see the latitude and longitude and the incident key for every collision that is in my database. All right. So Couple things that I can do that are a little bit different. Remember I said that there is a collision description? I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it onto color. And you'll notice that all of a sudden I have a lot of different colors here. I'm going to add one thing in the color. Anytime you want to modify anything about your chart, you're going to be looking right here in this middle section. So if I want to change the colors, I click on this button here, and I could edit the colors. All right. If I want to change the size of the dots, I can change the size of them just by dragging and dropping. If I would like to change the information that's in the tooltip, and that's this pop-up thing right here, I just click this button right here, and I have a text editor so I can modify the tooltip. So that's essentially how you're going to customize each of these charts. But you see that I have an awful lot of collision descriptions, and there's a lot of colors on the screen. And you'll notice that it's a little bit hard to differentiate the different colors. Essentially, what you have is a car hitting a bike hitting a car, a bike striking an object, or a bike hitting another bike, and a bike hitting a pedestrian. Because remember, these are all about bicycles. So I'm actually going to highlight all of these that talk about the bike hitting the car. Just highlight them, and I just do that by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the first and the last. And then you see this little pop-up that appears? I'm going to grab this paper clip. And by grabbing the paper clip, what I just did is it created a group. And this is basically car hit bike. So if I right click on that, I'm going to edit the alias and I'm going to call it car hit bike. Okay. You'll see why I'm doing this. It'll make a little bit more sense. These are all bike hit car. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to group these together. And let's see, where was that? I'm going to edit the alias, bike hit car. Okay. Notice these are starting to look a little bit easier. Let's see. We have this one, pedal cyclist struck pedestrian. I'm going to change the alias of that to bike hit pedestrian. It's a little bit easier to read than pedal cyclist. Pedal cyclist struck pedal cyclist. So that's a bike hit a bike. One is in the front end, one is in the rear end. I'm going to combine those. And let's see, where did that go? That's this one right here. I'm going to change the alias. Bike hit bike. And then the last one is the bike overturned the road, the bike ran off the road, or the bike struck an object in the road. And that's just solo bike. So I'm going to group those, and I'm going to call that solo bike. Okay, so now you see that I have far fewer descriptions, and they make a little bit more sense. They're a little easier to read, but the colors are still kind of gross. So I'm going to come back here to the colors. I'm going to edit the colors, and notice that I have only a few to work with now, so it's a little bit easier. So I'm going to start with a car hit the bike, because to me, that's the big one. So I'm going to grab something from this color palette. I'm going to say red, because red is pretty dramatic to me. And then I'm going to do a bike hit a car. I'm going to change that one to blue. A bike hit pedestrian. I'm going to make that a gray. And these are pretty arbitrary, but I just want to be able to show you that you can grab different colors from different chart types, or rather from different color palettes. And then a solo bike, I'm going to make that purple. So notice here that it's a little bit hard to see the gray one, so maybe I should adjust these colors just a little bit. That's an awfully dark red, so we'll make that a little bit brighter. That's a little bit better. And one other thing I like to do when I'm clustering a map like this is I like to put a black or a white highlight around, or even, an orange highlight, something that makes it a little bit easier to see that there's more than one item behind there. I can also make it semi-transparent so that you can see that several of them take place in the same location. And I'm going to open these up and make these a little bit larger. All right, so you have a basic map right here. Notice that the tooltip is still kind of ugly, but you can pretty much tell where the different accidents occur. Also, if I wanted to look at just the car hit the bike, all I do is click this, click each of these, and you can see all of the different categories of collisions. I noticed that I made it semi-transparent, so they're a little bit less dark. This will be a little bit easier to see. All right. I've gotten a question in the window is how to get the data source for practice. If you take a look at the chat window, I created a link to data.seattle.gov and to that specific website, and you can actually download the data directly from there, or you can send me a message after the training and I can show you how to pull it down also. One other piece that you'll probably use is the map. You see that the background is, it's okay. I want to show you how to correct that. So I can go up here to the top to map and map layers. And by default, built in, there's a couple of different styles. If I want to do something really dramatic, I can do dark. And you notice that it changes to a black map. I can also do normal, which is a nice green map where you're going to see the waterways as blue. This is what I'm going to use on this particular chart. And I can just close the map layers out. There's also some map box maps that are available in here. If you choose map, background map, and map services, you have the option of actually adding Mapbox maps and WMS servers. If you have used those before, you know how to grab those keys again. Let's see. Somebody was just asking me for this URL, so let me put that into the chat window one more time. All right, there you go. So the only other thing I would tidy up here is perhaps I would reorder these. So I might put the car hit the bike up at the top because that seems to be one of the biggest ones. I like to kind of order them based on how often or how common the accidents are. I'll also change the sheet name to map, which I did just right down here. So we're going to move on to the next chart. And where did I grab the map detail again? Right here. This is the incident key, and I made it a dimension. All right. So one more thing I want to show you on this is the tooltip, because this is where I spend a lot of time. Anytime you want to add something to a tooltip, because by default it's only going to show you the fields that you have currently displayed on your chart. You can add more information to the tooltip. So right now I have collision description, I have an incident key, maybe I want to add the light conditions. So I grab it and I drop it onto tooltip. And maybe I want to talk about the road conditions, and I'll put that in the tooltip. And I want to indicate whether or not the person was speeding, and I'll add that to the tooltip. Now when I look at tooltip, you'll see that there are several other fields that are displayed: light conditions, road conditions, speeding, and of course latitude, longitude, incident key. Some of this stuff isn't really all that interesting. Like, nobody really cares what the latitude and longitude are when you're looking at a tooltip. So I'm going to delete that. What I am going to do though is I'm going to take this collision description and I'm going to center that. I'm going to change the color. Let's see, we'll make it that color, and I'm going to make it nice and big so that you can see it. I think also I want to add an address, some sort of location information so that I could see where this actually happened. And now I'm looking through here and you notice this is where it would be really helpful for me to have renamed the location. So let's see if location, if I drag that to the tooltip and open up the tooltip. Notice location isn't here, and that's because I started modifying the tooltip already. So I'm going to take this, and if you click Insert, you'll see that all of your tooltip options are right down here. So here's location. I'm going to take that and I'm also going to center it and make it a little bit bigger. And all the rest of the information is pretty useful. So let's see, if I take a look now, this looks a little bit different. It says that a car hit the bike at 5th Avenue and Northeast 50th. That, for a local, is a lot more descriptive than a latitude and longitude. It also tells me that the light conditions, it was daylight, that the road was dry, and if it was speeding, somebody would have said that there was speeding involved. Let's see, I don't think I have any right now that show that they were speeding. Right there. So somebody was speeding in this accident. I suspect it was probably the car. And so speeding appears as yes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line chart, and we're going to show the number of incidents for year. So I'm going to take the incident date time. You remember this date time that we were looking at? And I'm going to drag it to columns. Okay. And then I'm going to take the number of records, which is all the way down here. And this basically counts the number of records to that date time item. And I'm going to drag that to rows. Okay. So automatically it's created a really basic line chart. But remember, I've got this collision description that's got these nice colors. So I'm going to take this and drop it down on color. Look at that. That's kind of that gross set of colors again. So I'm going to do one of the most important things that you can ever do in Tableau, and Control Z is undo. It is an unlimited undo until the last time that you open the file. So you'll always want to use undo when things are going kind of strange. So I'm going back to the collision description, the one that's got the paper clip. I think that's actually what I use to create the groups. So I'm going to put that on color, and sure enough, these are my collision descriptions. They actually map pretty nicely to this chart. I'll come back to your questions in just a minute. We'll kind of wrap up with those too. So I don't really care for the way that this chart looks because it's going by year. So if I open this up, notice there's a little plus sign right there. It means that I can expand to different levels. So I'm going to open up the quarter. These are month. Let's see if I can get, not really happy about that either. I can drag these off if I don't like them. What happens if I do this? Okay. So still the different months of the year, but it doesn't tell me which year. So maybe that's not the best thing to do. I'm going to Control Z, and let's see. Year, quarter, month, day. And time. Notice that it's trying to calculate per hour. Maybe not the way I want to do it either. So notice that all I'm really doing is Control Z, or I'm dragging things off so that I can play with this until I get the kind of data that I'm looking for, or the kind of chart that I'm looking for. And I'm going to settle on the month. So I'm going to just leave it about like this. Not really thrilled about all these colors there. So I'm going to go look at my, let's see if I can do this. Year, quarter, month, and day. What do you guys think? It's kind of gross looking. Can I redo the changes? Yes, I can redo the changes if I have any to redo. So I can undo a couple times, and then there's a redo button right here. And is there an archive of the webinar? Yes, I'll actually put the recording up after the event or after the training. So let's go ahead and leave this as I have it right now. Still kind of working on this one a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and move on so I can show you one more chart type. So you notice that the first thing I did with a map is I double-clicked on longitude and latitude to create a map. With this chart, I dragged and dropped items to the columns and rows. Okay. With this third chart type, I'm going to open up something called Show Me. And Show Me will give you some templates of different chart types to use. It's just a open up, close, open up. You can open and close the Show Me as a number of times. But if you hover over the different chart types, it will tell you what kinds of data you need in order to create that chart type. So I'm going to take weather and the incident key, which I have here somewhere, incident key. And if I use the control button to highlight both of those two, notice that these items appear and it says these are the different chart types you can use for this kind of data. So I'm going to go ahead and choose let's see, we're going to just do a bar chart. Not all that exciting, but what happens if I take my collision description and I put it onto color? Again, I can close the Show Me down and you can see the different kind of weather that is attached to the different kinds of accidents. I can go up here to the top of my toolbar and I can flip this so I have vertical. And I can also change the sort order so that I'm looking at them from most number of incidents to least. But actually, this is the incident key. So is that exactly the kind that I'm looking for? So again, we're going to kind of play with this. You sort of work through a couple of different items in order to put your dashboard together. So let me go ahead and pull these into a dashboard. So this is just an example. It's not totally complete, but we're almost out of time. So I want to make sure that you see what putting a dashboard together looks like. So your option is right down here. If you hover, it says New Dashboard. A couple of important things that you're going to want to look at are your dashboard size. If you choose a range size, it will automatically adjust based on the maximum and minimum size that you allow. This is also where you would go using our device designer if you needed to create something for a tablet versus a mobile phone. I'm not going to go into detail on that. It is quite a bit more to cover, but I want to show you how to create a dashboard. So this is as simple as dragging and dropping. Your different objects are down here, and the different sheets that we created are right here. You'll see that it shows a little, just a little preview. And if I drag this up here, wherever it highlights is where it's going to drop that item. So I'm going to create a title. And I'm going to make this a bit larger. And I'm going to center it. Okay, so I put it right in the middle of the page. Let's say I want to create a little bit of vertical space. So if I hover right there, it'll create a vertical space down below. And I want to divide that space up into two different sides. So let's see, I'm going to bring the map onto this side. And notice I'm actually just kind of holding my mouse button down until it drops where I want it to. I'm going to put the line chart right here. And I'm also going to put the bar chart down below. So these are kind of jammed together, but partly that's because of this item. I'm going to change this to floating, and that means go wherever I tell you to go, which is basically what it's doing. I'm going to right click and I'm going to not show the title. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to scrunch it way up there so that I give the chart a little bit more room. I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it up. I want it to be floating. So I'm going to drag it to right there. All right. So this is effectively a dashboard. What I don't have, let's say if I choose car, hit bike, you notice that everywhere on the chart, everywhere on the dashboard, those actually highlight. If I choose bike, hit car, those highlight across all of the charts. So I would probably spend a couple of hours, knowing it was me, tidying this up a little bit and making it a little bit different, changing the way that each of these colors appear, changing the titles so perhaps they don't show up. I'm going to hide the title. I'm going to hide this title. And then perhaps I would remove the null items. I'm going to exclude those so that you can see, and I'm going to remove the other items. So I would be kind of playing with this a little bit and definitely fixing this chart type. And then to publish it to Tableau Public, I'm going to go to Server, Tableau Public, and save to Tableau Public as. It's going to give me a login prompt, and this is a different login than you have to the support boards. So if you've asked a question to support, you have one login. If you have Tableau Public, you have a different login. So make sure that you are aware which of those boards you're trying to reach. I need to create an extract of this data in order to publish it to Tableau Public. So I just need to come back to the data source page and click extract. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. It's just asking me where to put that extract. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it where it was. And then I have to do the save to Tableau Public again. Okay, Server, Tableau Public, save to Tableau Public as. Log in again. And it's asking me for a title. So I'm going to save that. And it's publishing 4 views, or it's telling me there's 4 views available. I know we're just about 2 minutes past the hour, but I'm going to open this up and show you what it looks like once it published to Tableau. Once it published to Tableau Public, I can choose to edit details here, and that would allow me to show the workbook sheets as tabs if I wanted to do that, so you could see each of the individual charts. I could modify whether or not to allow the data to be downloaded by others. I don't know why I wouldn't. This is publicly available data, so it doesn't really matter to me. And if I go to my profile, you'll see that here is the accident item right here. I can hide it, I can choose to delete it, or I can choose to download it. All right. So that is my really quick introduction to creating a visualization and publishing to the web. I'm going to go ahead and stay online for a few minutes, but I'm going to bring my contact information back up. If you're not able to stay, please feel free to send me an email and I will answer your questions as quickly as I can. And I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions that are in the chat window. So thank you very much for participating today. If you have questions, feel free to stay on or send me a message in chat or send me an email. And yes, this webinar is recorded. I just need to take a few minutes to actually encode the file. So I will make sure that it's available to you as well. If you don't see it and you need it urgently, ping me. All right. So thank you again, and let me go to some questions. Let's see. Yes, I probably should have made it continuous, the line chart. All right. Of all the Tableau products available, what product should I use for practice between Tableau Desktop, Public, or Online? If you have access to all 3, you can use whichever one you want. They're almost all exactly the same, except for where you publish this to. And I showed you at the end of this session that you could make your practice items hidden on your profile. The big advantage to Tableau Public is that it's free. So that's where I would actually start. What happens when you export the chart? Do the tooltips remain? You're actually publishing the chart online, so all of the tooltips do remain because it's available on the web. If you were to export it as an image, for example, it would not work. It wouldn't be interactive at all. It would just be an image. Let's see. My screen shows both live and extract buttons. Is that correct? Yes. In fact, I was working with a live version of the data. In order to publish it to Tableau Public, I needed to create an extract of the data. So that captures it and puts it as part of the file when it saves to Tableau Public. So it depends on your data source. If it's generally small, I tend to keep my connection live, and so that I can continue to update it. However, anytime you're going to save it to Tableau Public, you do need to create an extract of the data. What other data type icons does Tableau show? I think there's probably, I think the number, string, date, time, and geography are the primary ones. I can't even think of any others off the top of my head. Can I share a video of the event? I will as soon as I'm done and I can get a chance to encode it. So I'll have a link back up on our training site so that you can access it. And you can certainly send me email as well. If I update my Excel spreadsheet, how can I reflect those changes in the existing sheets in Tableau? You'll reconnect to or just refresh your data source once you update your spreadsheet. So that's up under, on the data source tab, it's under File, Refresh Data Source. And let's see, need to work in big data, you'll need to work in Tableau Desktop or Tableau Online. I have a few places on a map and want to put a visual label. How to do this? When you create the map, I'll open up Tableau again real quick, and I have the map right here. The easiest thing to do is there is a label button right here at the top. If there are mark labels, it depends on the different type of chart. This particular chart may not make any sense to put labels, but you use this label icon right here to show your mark labels. By default, you'll see that it's not going to show on this map because there's so many. However, you can create, let's see, what do we have? Match the mark color. I think the challenge is because I've got a map and so many are overlapping. I'm going to allow the labels to overlap other marks, and still not appearing on this particular map. If you have an example of something that you want to talk through, let me know. I think this is also that the label isn't showing. So let me grab this, put the collision description on the label. You'll notice this just kind of went black. So you're going to want to add the appropriate field to the label type and then decide if you want the labels to overlap the other marks or what type of mark to show up on the label. Let's see, I just looked at no server option. Okay, so one of the questions is, I just looked at public.tableau.com. There's no server option to connect to a DB. I think that's only available for desktop. You are correct. Desktop is the only thing that connects to a database. Tableau Public connects to a CSV, an Excel spreadsheet, and Google Sheets only. Can I share other data sources for practice? Up on public.tableau.com, on the Resources tab, let me see if I can open it up really quick. Let's see, that would be about right here. On the Resources tab, there are some sample data sets, and these are items that you can use to practice. They're all Excel spreadsheets or CSV files, which means you should be able to pull them off of Tableau Public. All right, one other question. I need to present to a team for a role, and I was wondering if there's a really cool demo I could see on YouTube. Why don't you send me an email on this one, and I will be happy to answer your question and maybe give you some ideas. Can I share the cleaned data to work? Yes, why don't you drop me an email as well? There's my contact information. And let's see, without hovering over. All right. And how to delete the loaded files? Do you mean how to disconnect from that particular data source? If you do, you can just close Tableau and it'll disconnect, or you can go to data source and probably, let's see, data, and choose new data source. Oh, to just clear the data? Well, if you have already created any charts and you clear the data, it will delete the charts. So the charts are implicitly tied to the data. So you aren't able to just clear the data. You effectively close Tableau at that point. Does that make sense, Srini? Okay. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to go ahead and close out this recording and close today's session. Feel free to drop me email, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have. All right. Have a terrific day.